Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Lakeshore Ballroom. I'm just going to quickly MC an intro, and then we'll bring on our first presenters. If there's a few folks at the back, so if you've got an empty seat next to you and you don't mind shuggling up, that's a technical term, and letting some people have a seat, that would be great. There's some water at the back as well if you need it. So, yeah, without further ado, I would like to introduce Tom Bridge and Scott Reed. Cheers. Yeah, a round of applause.
Thank you.
Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? Pretty well? We all had our mind blown there a little bit in the keynote. Joel did some magic of his own. And so we get to talk a little bit about the pre-stage magic that we can actually do now with Jump Cloud and with pre-stage enrollments with Jamf. So a little bit about who we are. My name is Tom Bridge. I'm a partner at Techvolutionary in Washington, D.C. We do IT operations consulting and MDM magic, I think is a good way to put it. A lot of people see us as magic. That's what we're here for.
And I'm Scott Reed. I'm the manager of solutions architecture at Jump Cloud. Background in corporate IT. We're based out of Boulder, Colorado. And we have a lot of fun in the identity and access management space working with vendors like Jamf.
Yeah. So we're here to talk a little bit about magic, first of all, because our users see us that way. So let's talk about how you construct a good magic trick. And then we're also going to then show you the trick that we're here to tell you about. And then we're going to take a look behind the curtains and show you how it all comes together and how you can then take your own environment and build magic on your own. It's very important that you understand that none of what we're doing is actually magic. This is all Clarke's first law stuff. That any sufficiently advanced technology will appear as magic to the end user. So there are 3 acts of a great magic trick. Who's seen The Prestige? Any Jonathan Nolan fans in the house? Right here, me. The first thing is the pledge. And, you take something ordinary, you show someone a deck of cards, a person, a computer in a box with shrink wrap on it. It's not ordinary, though. They don't know that. But you have just handed them something that they understand the concepts behind. It has the appearance that it's completely usual in every other way, except that's not what we're handing them at all. Because the turn is that second step. It takes something ordinary and makes it extraordinary. It acts in a way that is unexpected and fascinating. There's a change in its very essence that is at once both expected and unexpected. Lastly, the prestige. You deconstruct every part of your audience's expectations of what is possible by pulling off something so completely audacious as to alter their very interpretation of what's possible. IT operations is a strange place to start pulling off magic, right? We're here for operations. We're here to make the normal day-to-day a functioning world. We're here to make the tangible parts of everyone's job very tangible to them. But are we capable of pulling off magic? How many times have you in this room been accused of committing sorcery at work? Yeah, it's a lot. But it's also probably not nearly enough, in my opinion. And our users have, shall we say, adapted to our incredible engineering prowess. So how about it's time to impress them again and take something that they know and turn it into something that they do not know any longer. So we're going to talk a little bit about just-in-time provisioned user accounts. So what we're here to do is deploy a brand new machine and using automated enrollment, as well as Jump Cloud and some open source tools. And, we all love Jamf and, that's a big part of our reality, right? Jamf alone is not enough. We need Jamf and. We're going to make a user appear without so much as an initial password. There will be no password. Now, it's a different trick than Joel Rennick just pulled off. With Face ID and FIDO tokens and Bluetooth and magic of a different kind. This is a different kind of magic entirely. We're going to do a just-in-time provisioning of a user to activate them even though they don't exist when the machine is unboxed. We're going to assign them permissions to a computer, including admin rights if they need them, or non-admin rights if they do not. We're going to give them access to staff groups, which might provide individual policy tokens and app installations through Jamf. And then we're going to strip out the transfer tools so that all that is left behind is a user who is assigned to the machine, their secure token, and all of their application permissions and their settings as part of all of that. And the best part is, we don't need to be in the room when it happens. So the idea is that we're going to turn this into this. We're going to make an IT person disappear from the onboarding room. We're not going to make IT people disappear, don't get me wrong. IT people are very important. I know I am one. I like that there are so many people here today. I could not believe that there are people sitting on the floor. I'm so sorry. I wish I had more chairs. But, you know, the whole thing here is that what we want to do is free up your time so that you can do more of the engineering, so that you can make more magic, so that you can take back your life a little bit and maybe stop getting those calls at 7 p.m. on the East Coast when a user's setting up their machine for the first time at 4 p.m. in Los Angeles. You know, when you're supposed to be enjoying dinner with your family or some downtime, you're having to take a call. Wouldn't it be nice if that was less of the reality that we were all in? So what are the benefits of doing it this way? Well, you get a true zero-touch, self-service new user onboarding. True zero-touch gives your colleagues, the people that you are deploying machines for, a chance to be in the driver's seat from moment one, literally moment one. The machine is never not theirs, primarily. Secondly, this gets you out of most of the automated enrollment and mobile device management process. This gets you the most out of that process. You are using all parts of the cow at this point, if you'll pardon my hunter's metaphor. Apple Business Manager and your MDM are incredible tools that allow you to kick off an entirely automated process to do the basics of your work without having to sit down and issue individual commands. Thirdly, you can take a bit of a break from the IT-led onboarding process because you've planned for the key elements of this process from the get-go. You don't have to hold hands all the way through the deployment process. That's time you can spend on security preparedness. It's time you can spend on patch management, on inventory management, and more. And lastly, putting your colleagues in the driver's seat from that first moment puts them in control of their environment. Who here was impressed by the information that we took away from Fletcher Previn from IBM in that keynote? How awesome was that to see that people are not only more productive with their Mac environments, they engage more with their coworkers. They're less likely to leave their company. I mean, I was going to say, there's a huge amount of that. How much of that can be attributed to ownership of the machine, of the process from moment one? I can't say. But that's a very unique position that IBM is in that they have streamlined that workflow to the point where they don't need someone from IT holding their hand to deploy that machine. That's the gold standard for every environment that we have out there right now. So if you say, if as they say, you know, feed a person a fish and they're full for an hour, but you teach them to fish and they're full for their life, you know, giving your colleagues ownership and control of their environment from that first moment, while not making them feel abandoned, will win you friends and influence people and give you more time to be the engineer you want to be. So what are the tools for our trick? And I'm going to back up because I hit that space bar a little too fast. Boom. Sorry. What are the tools for our trick? Apple Business Manager. Who here has an Apple Business Manager account? That was 90% of the hands. Let's make it 100%. Awesome. You need an MDM. We're going to do this in Jamf Pro today. And you need an MDM that's capable of doing pre-stage enrollment through automated enrollment through Apple Business Manager. In this case, you need a Jump Cloud directory. And you need a configured Jump Cloud _bootstrap_template.sh file. Wow. Which is a fancy way of saying, we're going to give you all the tools you need to do this yourself. And then you need a packaging tool. And for those of you actually planning to sign these for upload and delivery via MDM, you're going to need an Apple Developer Signing Certificate to do that. So if you don't have one already, the program is $99 a year. You can sign up for free accounts under certain circumstances with certain limitations. But this is something every admin should have or have access to. So nothing that we are providing here as the requirements list is onerous or hard to acquire. Generally, it just requires a lawyer, some paperwork, and someone in your organization who probably has the word C in their title. But that kind of takes us to the first piece. Some of this is obvious, some of this is not. So, Scott, what's a Jump Cloud directory?
Great question. So Jump Cloud is a cloud-based alternative to Open Directory or Active Directory. And we think about what a cloud-based directory is. It's really your users, the data describing your users. Now, your users in Jump Cloud, they live in the cloud. And we think about connecting these users to resource or endpoints. We're going to do that through cloud forward protocols. So for connecting to, let's say, your Wi-Fi or your networked endpoints, we'll use cloud-based Radius, and Jump Cloud will be the source of truth for that. If we think about other pieces of your environment, perhaps your on-prem storage or on-prem applications, you would use Jump Cloud LDAP and the SMB protocol to connect to, say, a Synology or a QNAP. In addition to managing things through LDAP, we also offer SAML 2.0 integration. So Jump Cloud can be an identity provider and connect you to all your SaaS apps through our user console. Jump Cloud is really going to be an authoritative cloud-based directory that is the source of truth for all of the passwords for your users in your environment. When it comes to managing systems, there's no concept of a network-based perimeter where you actually have to bind the user's machine to a domain controller and be on the network to do that. Instead, we have a lightweight agent which runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux, and this agent is what takes over the directory tasks on the machine. So all of this management occurs in the Jump Cloud admin console or through RESTful APIs, which we may be seeing a little bit later today. What you get at the end of the day from an end user perspective is end users have a single sign-on that they use for all of their resources. So a user has a single set of credentials that they would use to access the Wi-Fi, to access their computer, to log into perhaps their G Suite account. Jump Cloud also has direct API integrations into both G Suite and Office 365. So if you're using both of those and need something to be the glue that is the sense of the source of truth, Jump Cloud can push passwords into both of those. When we think about configuring a Jump Cloud directory, we're really just setting up our users. So Jump Cloud accounts can be pre-configured with resource access by their user group membership. If we take an example of a user here, this user on this slide, Jessica Flax, is a member of 3 groups. All employee, if we can read that, it looks like backend engineer and G Suite Sync. By being members of a group, Jessica has access to all of the indirect associations of this group. These can be things like single sign-on applications, access to Salesforce, access to things in AWS, or even to the company Wi-Fi. And if we look, Jessica's got a little orange dot next to her. Jessica is in what we call a pending state. Her account has no password. And when an account has no password, there's no risk, right? There's nothing that can leak. So her account is what we call pre-staged. It's created, it's been added to groups, it has access to resources, but it has no password because it's not activated. So for her onboarding, as soon as Jessica activates her password, she'll be able to get access to all those resources. So at the end of the day, all a user in Jump Cloud that's been pre-configured with access needs to do is set their password, and then they'll use that single set of credentials to get out to all of their endpoints. What's neat is Jump Cloud offers a Mac app, and this Mac app allows users to update their password directly from their Mac, and that password change will then propagate out to all their endpoints. So Jessica, who's been configured in groups in Jump Cloud, who has access to things via this group membership, but who has an account without a password, when she creates her password, she'll now have access to all those resources. And without further ado, we're going to check out our magic trick. Now, this magic trick is going to be a brief video that walks over what it would be like to onboard to Jump Cloud in this zero-touch scenario. Great chimes.
Yeah, the chimes are clutch.
So what the heck did we just see? First and foremost, I realize this is a small screen. What do we think? Maybe 480p? Anywho, this user has a secure token, something that's super important that we'll dive into later. But let's take a look behind the curtains. So Act 1, what we just simulated there, that was an ordinary Mac. That Mac is enrolled in Apple Business Manager and targeted by a Jamf MDM pre-stage enrollment. If we dive into Jamf, you'll see, again, very small, we've got one configuration profile and one enrollment package. So that is all that we have configured for that flow we just watched. Number 2, what the heck is this? So for those of us that know how secure tokens work, we know that the first user to sign into a machine receives a secure token. In this case, for this flow, we use something called an enrollment account. And this is how we own that set of credentials for that first user to sign into the machine. This account gets wiped at the end, so have no fear. This enrollment account is a temporary account that exists for our flow. As soon as the enrollment account signs in, this package that we have scoped uses the installs applications MDM command to start the process that we see in the background. And what does that process do? Well, it starts out by installing and launching dep notify. Everything we see here can be completely configured. This is a fictitious company called Azipa, which is a pizza backwards. Seriously. Anywho, as soon as this dep notify launches, it's really just a presentation layer to prevent the user from doing anything as we have our workflow go in the background. And what happens is the first thing that occurs is the Jump Cloud agent gets installed. Well, what can the Jump Cloud agent do? And maybe you can talk a little bit about this.
Sure. The Jump Cloud agent is there both as a command line runner. So for those of you who are familiar with running individual app commands through the Jamf binary, now the Jump Cloud binary offers the same ability. And also allows you to secure a machine, add users to a machine, remove users from a machine, especially in security situations where you might just want to say, close down their machine and remove their user login from credentials without destroying any of the information on the disk. You now have a secure token for that user, which means a recovery key has been generated. So now you have a machine that literally doesn't have a user, but you can still unlock the disk with the recovery key when it comes back to you for forensic analysis and things along those lines. But there is literally no way to log into a machine with no user.
Correct.
So that is the kind of thing that the Jump Cloud agent can do.
When we get the Jump Cloud agent down on this flow, what we first do is we think about deploying net new local macOS user accounts. So that's that action we see at the end of the flow when that account gets taken down. Now, the agent can do that not just on Mac, but also on Windows and Linux. The other thing that we can do is we can take over and remove access to existing local accounts. So we saw that enrollment account, enter password 1, was the first account we pushed down. We're going to use the agent in this flow to actually take that account and remove it from the machine. This is where Act 3 comes in, which is our prestige. And our prestige is this self-identification of the user. Where in the window that we have here, users can self-identify through a number of configurable options. In the flow that we saw, the user identified using their company email address and this concept of a secret word. This secret word is something we would provide to them so that they can identify themselves and only they can access their account. But there's total optionality in the flow for this. Some other options are you can take out that concept of a secret word. You could allow them to use their personal email address to identify themselves with. You could also use their last name. There's a number of things that we'll find that we can use. And the optionality is really built with security in mind. So the concept of a secret word is really defined for users that have a password already, because if anyone could associate an account to their machine, then that wouldn't be very secure. Only users that don't have a password don't have to use that concept of a secret word, and this optionality is built in. So what we do is we use that input from dep notify to then use the Jump Cloud API to find that user who's been pre-configured, and we then use that information via this example here, which is inside of our flow, to look the user up. If the user types in something that isn't found, they get an option to try again. So this isn't a one and done sort of scenario. Once the account is located, you'll see here, Jump Cloud account located, we actually bind the user to the Jump Cloud system. So in the Jump Cloud admin console, we'll see amazingly that a system will all of a sudden have a user bound to it. you have optionality in Jump Cloud and in this flow to define if the user is going to be an admin user or a standard user. The other fascinating thing that we have is the optionality to allow users to set their password during this flow. That was that alternative activation that we saw. And when users set their password, you can make sure that it's compliant with the password policies that you have in place. So it's got to have 8 characters, a number, a special character. All of that is built into this. And what happens is that when a user sets their password here, that change will then push out to all of their associated resources. This is the final step where we remove the user from the machine, that enrollment user, and all the user sees is the account that they've identified, their self-identification. They click the option and log in, and they're totally bound to their machine, able to log in with the password that they set. And most importantly, the user has a secure token. So from here, we can turn on encryption, and the user will be able to unlock their file vault disk.
So Scott, how do you actually make sure that you're doing that in a secure way? How do you add a secure token to a user that's never been on the machine and was provisioned well after the first user?
It's a great question. So raise of hands, how many people have installed the Jump Cloud agent before? Okay, so we've got a couple. So do you remember this enrollment account? So this enrollment account was the first account to sign into the machine. So we knew that this account had a secure token.
And that was the one that was delivered in the MDM enrollment process.
Correct.
As part of that pre-stage.
This would be the settings that we would configure in Jamf and say, push an admin account down, yes. Push this funny admin account down, whose name is enter password welcome1. Well, we actually use these credentials to install the Jump Cloud agent because we need to know a secure tokened admin on the machine so that then we can decorate the Jump Cloud service account. So because the Jump Cloud admin account is the first account to sign into the machine, we use that account to create the Jump Cloud service account. And the purpose of that service account is to really play the telephone game, to give out secure tokens to Jump Cloud managed users. Because of the presence of that service account, now we can take or remove secure tokens from users. And inside the install script, we actually use these. So this is a screenshot pulled from the machine. And you'll see here's the Jump Cloud service account, user 502, which is the second user created on the machine after that welcome account. Have no fear, we clean up that enrollment account at the end of the flow. So that account gets totally removed from the machine. So what you're left with is you're left with the Jump Cloud service account with a secure token, which it can use to decorate and make sure that all of the users that Jump Cloud pushes down to the machine can securely decrypt that disk.
Sure. And so I see listed in that script, if we step back for just a second, that there's an enrollment user listed as a variable there, but I also see a decrypt user. What's the decrypt user for?
Wow, it's almost like we set these questions up
in advance.
So we know that we have to use APIs securely. And the way that we have this configured is we have to use an API key inside of this flow to do all these tasks with Jump Cloud. Adding the user to the system, setting the user's password, that requires an API key. Well, there's actually 2 methods to authenticate to the Jump Cloud API. There is just a plain API key method, and then something we call the system context API. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that everything we're doing is secure. Well, this system context API is a very interesting way that a system without an API key can add itself to things. Well, what we do in this flow is we actually add the system to a Jump Cloud group, and by adding that system to the group, we push down someone called the decrypt user. That decrypt user is actually used, an attribute on that user, to unlock the Jump Cloud API key, which is encrypted in our script. And the way that the flow works is in a way that at no point are all the pieces needed or accessible to the end user to decrypt that key. So this decrypt user lives on the system and in this flow specifically to ensure that that API key is protected.
And you can't leave the walled garden until that user is gone.
Correct, correct. So again, if we look here to put the point in a little farther, that this decrypt user is used to securely decrypt the encrypted Jump Cloud API key, and then this key is used for the rest of the flow to take out all those actions. What's nice is from a troubleshooting perspective, we also have a verbose log. So there's a log on the system. So when you put this in place, if there's any sort of issues that we have a verbose log on the system to use for troubleshooting. Now, all of this flow is driven from a single PKG, and this PKG has a launch daemon that ensures that, let's say, the Wi-Fi disconnects. If the Wi-Fi disconnects in the middle of it, no problem, that launch daemon will ensure that the flow occurs again. So we've talked a lot about what's under the hood. Let's talk about what else you can do with this. What else can you do with this flow?
Well, so we've given you now all of the tools that you can start with to do this, but what kind of magic can you create in your own environment? Because it's not enough just to do the trick for a willing audience. In our case, we want to teach you that trick so that you can take it back and use it yourself. And so our big questions here are, how does this work in your environment? We've talked at length about how we do it in our ideal environment that was demonstrated here with a recorded video because we dare not risk the demo gods. We saw that they were a little bit, shall we say, angry today. So we want it to work for your environment. You can adapt. You get to adapt all of these tools into a coherent whole for your organization. It's not enough to template your enrollment process. It's about making sure that those dominoes fall in the right order to match your own needs and wants for your organization's setup goals. Do you need to make sure that this enrollment happens in a certain order? You can customize your process to make sure that accounts get built at the right time with the right API calls. So this gets to an important question. And it's the why question. Why do this? Why spend the engineering time? And there's a little bit of engineering time that's going to be required on your part to customize this for your environment. Why do that at all? Because anytime you can automate your setup, you amplify the amount of time you get back. Everything you do to streamline onboarding pays dividends, not just in return of your own time, but in providing ownership to your coworkers in their own spaces. Systems that flow smoothly provide internal trust to your colleagues. And that system that you've implemented thoughtfully and carefully is not haphazard. It is not ad hoc. It is something that respects the time of the end user, as well as your time as an engineer. Even if, for a little bit, it's going to feel a little haphazard and a little ad hoc as you develop this internally. Using test groups, using test workflows, using some user testing and user experience processes inside your own environment would be definitely recommended as you tinker with your onboarding flow. But let's talk about the amplification process. This is a wonderful XKCD comic that I keep bookmarked in my bar because it's helpful for me to remember how long I take to build something and how much time it saves me is certainly an important estimation. The amount of time that you get back over a 5-year period or a 2-year period or a 3-year period is certainly important for you to think about. If you're doing 2 onboarding days a month with a few people each time, and each person represents 30 to 60 minutes of work, how much time are you saving? So if it's, 30 minutes, twice a month, you're looking at 10 hours of savings over 5 years. What could you do with a day off? I know what I could do with a day off. I'd go out and maybe not when it's so cold here, but go out and sit in a park with my son and take him out of school and we can go have an adventure. That would be pretty awesome. How do we give back time to ourselves? Automation, controls, training, all of these things that are built into good processes gives us that opportunity. So how do we do this? Everything Scott showed you today in that demonstration video and in our conversation is available in boilerplate files for you to download and work within your own environment. It's highly customizable so that you can script the process that follows. Making use of Jamf Cloud's API will allow you to move users and computers in and out of groups that trigger provisioning actions. And in addition, you can make use of your MDM's API to perform policy-driven actions as part of your implementation structure. There are rich RESTful APIs that you can use to call actions, both within Jamf Cloud's environment as well as within Jamf's environment to make this functional for you. I'm realizing that a pixelated screen with a pixelated code is going to be a little bit of a challenge. We'll make sure that the link gets out to everybody. Follow Jamf Cloud on Twitter and they'll take care of you there. I'm going to tell a funny story here because I feel like this is the important thing to come away with. When I was 12, we used the spare bathroom at my parents' place to make a nuclear reactor, which is to say that we bought a bunch of ping pong balls and mouse traps. If you're familiar with how a nuclear reactor works, you fire an electron at a piece of uranium, and it splits. And then that process repeats itself over and over and over again. You create a cascading event. And so essentially we set up all of the mousetraps, and we set them all up with a pair of ping pong balls on the spring arm, and you toss in a ping pong ball and watch pandemonium occur. So, I mean, that's what fission reactions were like. I mean, I guess if we'd had the Instagram back in my day, because I'm old now, that would have been awesome. We'd have gone viral. We'd have made the news or something. But instead, it was just a science experiment. But the idea was planted. If you can kick off a process, make its internal steps continue without your participation, you can accomplish incredible things. Like, having to clean up a whole bunch of mousetraps and ping pong balls in your parents' bathroom. That's super cool. But this tool that we give you in their GitHub repo is entirely forkable. It's public. It's available for your use. And so feel free to fork it directly and make your own changes to it. Keep everything in source control. Private source control is preferred because you're going to store some stuff in there that maybe you don't want out in the wide world. But we want you to be able to do all of these things yourself.
Another thing to note, all Jump Cloud accounts are fully featured for up to 10 users. No sort of paywall, no sort of you have to put in a credit card number. So if you need a Jump Cloud account to test out this flow and in your test environment and see if this is something that could work for you, just signing up for an account is the easiest way to go about that. We learn by doing, so I really think that seeing the admin console, seeing the groups, clicking the buttons is how you learn what a product can do. Mm-hmm. So up to 10 users, totally ungated.
Yep. And so we also have to think about what we're doing here. And so this is where the magic goes away from what we've talked about so far and what we've shown you in that video, and goes to become your magic trick, because your environments are all unique. And so you have different needs, you have different wants as part of your onboarding process. You can deliver custom policy triggers with Jamf Pro via the API. At that point, you can do Jump Cloud triggers for just-in-time activations. You can do Slack workflows for new users because, again, APIs are magic. And then you can also do, so essentially at that point, you've delivered a computer to a user. They've got now a Slack ID account through their Jump Cloud credentials. And then you can build a workflow in Slack for new users so that the Slack bot can kind of take the baton and guide your users through a different kind of onboarding process. So be aware what you're building can be modular and can expand over time. What we're here to do to make you think about this is that you have incredible tools at your disposal that are all driven by human events that can be backed up with machine APIs. And then, you can also take advantage of Jamf's LDAP bindings and actions to move user events through groups and things along those lines. And then you can also customize it with Bash and Z shell scripts as part of this entire process. So, as we take away from the day, we learned a little bit about magic and how magic works and why magic's effective as a storytelling tool. We learned how to make an IT person disappear from new user onboarding, don't worry. And then we took a look behind the curtains and learned how we could implement this in our own environment. So I think that takes us to the event, to the end of our talk here. I think we've got mics on either side. If you've got questions, we're happy to take them.
We'll also be at our booth. So if you want to get a more detailed video, see closer what was going on, don't hesitate to stop by. We'll be at the booth. But yeah, any questions, feel free to step up to one of these mics.
There are mics on the outside. So if folks want to jump out, and we do need the mics for recording purposes. So.
That's perfect.
That's fine too.
Looks like we're getting there.
Getting there. 1 second.
Check, testing.
Perfect.
Real quick, you talked about a pre-configured Jump Cloud account. What does it look like on the configuration of these accounts, and how do we get those accounts created?
So to create accounts, there's a number of ways. Everything from creating a CSV file and uploading from there to importing directly from Office 365 or G Suite. Creating an account is really just filling out attributes, right? First name, last name, username, email. Pre-configured to me, what I mean is the idea that it doesn't have a password, so it's passwordless. So we create this account with all the attributes that define the user, and then we can bind that user to things in Jump Cloud. Now, the easiest way to do a bind is just by clicking a checkbox, but these are all customizable. You can do binds in bulk from CSV through the API, through our PowerShell module, but creating accounts is just the easiest way. Type in first name, last name, email, and hit save.
Another question? Nice. Oh, I think it's off right now.
There we go. I see that you guys are pushing a service account in your demo. Do you have an integrated Laps solution similar to what AD has that works with the Mac OS?
So for that concept of lapse, what's cool is because that service account specifically only exists to be a tool used by the agent. That password is specific to the system and it's never known. So at no point ever could you log in with that account, could you actually use that account to access the system. It is only there for the agent to use as a tool to decorate secure tokens.
Right. However, there is no reason that at that point, if you're having a conversation with a coworker who needs an admin credential login, that you can't just temporarily, log into their, go into the Jump Cloud dashboard, assign yourself to their computer, and that delivers your credential. And so then you're an admin, you can do the task for the user, and then you pull yourself back off at the end. So yes, there is a Lapse style solution for that, but it just involves pushing your direct login down to the machine long enough for it to exist to do the task, and then you yank it back.
Yep. Another common use case is using user group associations to put a local admin account on all the systems. And what's neat about that is you can instantaneously update the password. So if you have an admin account managed by Jump Cloud on all the systems, and you update that password in Jump Cloud, that will update that password across the fleet of systems.
Well, but that's why Laps exists to randomize,
Right,
so that
right.
there isn't a single credential that can get into all the systems. So.
Exactly.
Yep.
So your security model may vary, and your choices can definitely vary. It's very flexible for that, and there's no reason that you couldn't write an API command to essentially deliver a temporary machine to a user to a machine with a randomized password that's only available from your internal system, and that's something that's definitely developable internally.
Yep. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right, well, we don't want to hold you from lunch.
Yeah.
So thank you. We'll be at the Jump Cloud booth right inside the doors. If you want to get any more information, don't hesitate to stop by.
Thanks, everybody.